Welcome to the 4F, 4Fs with Jeff.
Welcome back to the 4Fs podcast. I'm Jeff Clough. Today's guest is Elijah Donnelly. Elijah's a writer, filmmaker, and storyteller whose path runs from Nashville to rural Alabama, a 2-year volunteer mission, film hustle in LA, and now a thoughtful return to college at 30 years old. From a broken down MP3 player that rerouted his soundtrack to the day-to-day life of being a production assistant, Elijah's story is about chasing a creative calling through setbacks, strikes, totaled cars, and long commutes, and still deciding to give himself a second shot when the clock started to tick. My favorite thing about this story is that it feels like a comeback story, but at just 30 years old, there's definitely more to be written in this book. And as always, if you find you got no more F's left to give, I got you covered. Let's get into it. Elijah, so glad to have you on the podcast today, man. Thanks for joining us. The podcast always starts the same way, which is this. Where are you from?
Yeah, so that's a long story. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, originally. My parents are not from Nashville. My mom's from Alabama. She moved to Nashville to go to MTSU, Middle State Tennessee University,
Okay.
and was working in Nashville at a restaurant called Demas's. She was a waitress there. My father's from New York originally. He moved to Nashville to pursue the music dream. Everyone wants to go to Nashville to be a musician, and he's no different. So he moved there to be a drummer, and they met working at the same restaurant. And the thing about my parents is, God bless them, they're great people. In some ways, they didn't have any clue how to be parents. You know, I think everyone's parents, they do their best, and my parents were no different. They definitely did their best, but they definitely didn't have examples of being good parents in their lives. I won't go into it. That's not really my story to tell, but both of them have had experiences with some sort of abuse in the past. And so they sort of bonded over that. And unfortunately, when you are a victim of abuse, the statistics show that there's a high chance of continuing that forward. I'll put this disclaimer out there. I've never been like physically or sexually abused, but my parents, just through their mental health challenges, they sort of neglected me a lot as a kid. So I say all that to say that I'm from Nashville. I moved to Alabama, and I spent a lot of time in Alabama sort of alone because my parents just weren't involved in my life at that time. So I spent probably 4 years in Alabama, sort of isolated, and I don't want to say neglected, but in a sense, I was like emotionally neglected. And during that time, I was really just kind of ready to leave the house. So I moved back to Nashville because I love Nashville. I loved everything about it. And I've been in Nashville, or was in Nashville, for 7 years. Moved to LA, and now I'm here in Rexburg. So that's kind of the long story of where I'm from.
That was like a good encapsulation of your story. Thank you. And thanks for being vulnerable with that. That's not an easy thing to throw out there. You're right, man. I mean, parents it's a complex relationship, no way around it. And it sounds like yours was, complex to say the least. Yeah. Just thanks for being willing to share that. And vulnerability is tough, man. Right? I mean, like, I think that's something that I struggle with. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're all looking for human connection, right? And the only way you can do that is through vulnerability. But also, like, it's this balance, because you're like, man, like, what when you make yourself vulnerable, like, there's risk there, and that's freaking hard. So anyway, I applaud you for just coming out the gate like that. So thank you. All right, so you summarized your story really well just now in like a short time. There's like a lot. There's more to it, right? I mean, so you're in Alabama, but you love Nashville. And sorry, so you were in Nashville, and then you went back to Alabama at what age was this?
Yeah, I moved back to Alabama when I was 11.
When you were 11. Okay. And then you were there from like 11 till you went back, like after you finished high school ish.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just because Nashville kind of felt like home. Is that right?
Yeah. So Nashville for me, like when I was a kid, I just loved Nashville. I still love Nashville.
Mhm.
I had a lot of great experience. I mentioned my parents just sort of neglecting me when I was in Alabama, and that's because in Nashville, they didn't. I think they were happy in Nashville. And the reason why we moved to Alabama is sort of an unfortunate one. My parents, they didn't share this with me at the time. I only learned this recently, but my parents they were about to be kicked out. They were about to be foreclosed on their apartment. So they had no choice but to leave. They were going to be evicted. And so they moved to Alabama, and they told me at the time that it was because the housing market had collapsed. It was 2008.
Oh yeah.
That's what they told me at the time, and I think it's because they didn't want to tell their kid,
Sure.
"Hey, we're going to be evicted," which is fair, which is good
Yeah.
on them. And it's amazing that they were able to, I don't want to say keep that from me, but to
Protect you from it in some ways, right?
protect me
Sure.
from that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's more to the story, I think, though, and I didn't mean to hijack you there. So you were saying that they had this intent to protect you from this unfortunate circumstance as they decided to move to Alabama. But this was a new revelation for you, it sounds like, in recent time.
Yeah. So before I moved to LA, I met up with my parents for lunch, and it was a good time. And then as I was saying goodbye to them and taking them to my car, my dad like pulls me aside and he's like, "Hey, I want you to know something." And that's when he told me this story. And I don't know why he told that to me, but I'm glad he did, because it really, when you hear something like that, it gave me empathy for them.
Yeah.
I sort of better understood why they made those decisions, and sort of made them more human.
Yeah.
Made them more human.
I could see that. I mean, because it's brutal, man. Moving states when you're 12 years old or 11 or somewhere, even anywhere in that time frame, you're like, this sucks, mom and dad. Why are you making me do this? Why are you making me move? I totally get that. So you moved to Alabama when you're in this age range. What part of Alabama were you in? Were you in a larger city, or were you in more rural Alabama?
Good question. I was in northern Alabama, so it was rural.
Okay.
Ardmore is the name of the town.
Okay.
Or the city. There used to be a plaque that said, "Welcome to Ardmore, population 1,000."
Oh, wow.
So it was small.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, there's smaller places, but there are definitely bigger places too. So that puts it in perspective. So, all right. So you're in Ardmore, but that didn't fit. And I could see that being a huge change too, coming from Nashville. I mean, Nashville's a good sized city, and just things are different, man. They're different. Big city. Like, I've lived in both. I can see the value in both, but also there's no way around it. Like, people act differently, feel differently. It's just totally, that's a hard change, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my first day of school. It was 5th grade. I came into my 5th grade class. I had long hair. I mean, I still have long hair, but I had long hair. I had an earring. I had a tie-dye shirt on. And I go into class. Everyone's talking, and then everyone stops talking and looks at me. And I look at them, and everyone white. All the guys are wearing like camouflage. I just remember like, oh, I'm different. My first day, it was like a get to know you day. So people were like we like asked each other questions, and everyone kept asking me the same question, like Auburn or Alabama, Auburn or Alabama. And I had no clue what that meant. Like, in my mind, I'm like, Auburn's a color, Alabama's a state. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's hilarious, because I mean, that's everything, right? I mean, War Eagle, Roll Tide. Those are the two questions that you need to know in Alabama, right? So it sounds like that was a big epiphany moment for you, because I felt like as kids, you kind of just want to be like everybody else. You just want to fit in, right?
Yeah.
You just want to fit in. And so to show up and be like, oh, wow, I feel this feels different. That's freaking hard. That adds complexity to what you're dealing with. So what was your approach there? Were you did you try to, fit in, or just like, okay, well, let's get some camo shirts and let's try to fit in? Or, was it, how did you handle that? Is it?
Not well, to be honest, not well, because this was around the time where my parents were starting to shut in on themselves.
Okay.
And just sort of, so at that time, they were no longer a place where I could go to for help or protection. Like, I didn't know how to reach out to help to anyone at the time, but I know I didn't feel safe around my parents to talk with them about this sort of like feeling of isolation, feeling different. And so I joined sort of a group of misfits. I wasn't the only person who didn't quite fit in. There's a few others. And so I sort of joined that crowd. Unfortunately, that's the crowd that also were the troublemakers. Around like 6th and 7th grade, that's when they started drinking. That's when they started smoking. Some of them started doing drugs, like popping pills and smoking weed. And during this time, my family found a church, and my parents joined, but they weren't like really involved. Like, they joined and they believed it, but they didn't go. For me, I felt like I belonged there. And just what the church was teaching, I really connected with and really like fell in love with that. And so thankfully through that church, I was able to find a different community and a different sort of way of being. So I started to disassociate myself with those friend groups. To answer your initial question, how did I cope with that? Initially, I just fell in with a group of people who provided a sense of community. And then thankfully, I found a different community that had beliefs that we could be better people and we can, I don't know, it was just a very loving community
Yeah.
and a different type of love.
That's cool, man. Was that, so you're at BYU, was that an LDS church that you found in North Alabama, or is it a different church?
It was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you found the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in small town Alabama. And like, I mean, but how did that come across? How did you end up getting connected with the church in a fairly small town?
Yeah, I don't think it was an accident. I used to believe in accidents and coincidences, but I've had enough of life experience to believe that little accidents and coincidences don't really exist anymore, at least not without reason and purpose. So my mother grew up in a Baptist church. Her grandmother is the one who raised her. And so my mother went to church going with her grandmother. When she had me, she realized that she needed to quit partying and get her life back in order. And so she would frequently go to different churches in Nashville, but we never really settled on a specific church. We founded a Methodist church because my friends were Boy Scouts, and somehow I started going to Boy Scouts, and then the Boy Scouts was held at a Methodist church, so we started going to this Methodist church. And I was baptized first as a Methodist, and I liked the Methodist church. And then we moved to Alabama, and my mom, there's a Methodist church and a Baptist church, and if you know anything about the South, the Methodists and the Baptists and the Church of Christ all have like this feud going on. It's like a harmless feud, I think, but there is sort of, why are you going to that church? You should go to my church kind of vibe. So we started going to a Methodist church, but then my mom was like, you know what? No, like I'm going to go to the church that my grandmother raised me in. So we started going to that church. There was great people at that church too. I was a kid, so I didn't really like pay attention to like the Sunday teachings. And my mother, because she starts going to the Baptist church, all of a sudden she starts getting into Christian music. And so I didn't have like an MP3 player or anything. So when I'm in the car with my mom, I'm listening to whatever she's listening to, and it happens to be like the Christian radio. I hate it. It's boring. It all sounds the same. I didn't like it at all. I was into Green Day, Blink-182, Linkin Park. Like that was my that was my music. That's the stuff I listened to, and I hated what my mom was listening to. And then we're taking a long road trip back to Nashville. I don't remember why, but I do remember that being on the ride up to Nashville, and this song comes on the radio called "The Last Night" by Skillet. It's a rock song, and the idea of the rock song is that the singer's singing as God, and he's talking to this backup singer, the other woman, and the woman is talking about killing herself, and then God's talking her out of it. And it's this really heavy rock song, and I was like, this is amazing. Like it just hit. Like the lyrics felt like they applied to me in that moment, and it's the type of music that I liked. The song played on the radio, but they didn't say what the name of the song was. So I started listening to this Christian rock station, or not this Christian rock, it was this Christian radio station, just to find that song again, just because I was like, I need to hear that song again. Like that's the best song I've ever heard. And because I'm listening to the Christian radio station, I start liking a little bit more of the music. Actually, no, I'm remembering now. I'm so sorry. I said that this was before the days of like MP3 players. I had an MP3 player at the time. I was listening to my MP3 player at the time.
Okay.
The MP3 player stopped. It just died. It just like turned off. And that's when the song started playing.
Oh, okay. That feels like there's definitely some, a little more cosmic influence there happening, huh?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the moment, at least, I mean, maybe there's a happy coincidence there that, maybe the universe is unplugging your ears so you can hear something.
And from this point on, the MP3 player just doesn't work anymore. We couldn't afford a new one, so I just couldn't buy a new one. So I'm sort of forced or put in this position to not listen to my music, but to only listen to the radio, but now I'm like actively trying to find the name of the song again. And I think I eventually do. I find like one or two other artists that I like. And over time, I start liking more and more of like Christian music and the Christian radio. And that sort of becomes like all of a sudden everything that I'm listening to. I mean, I'm still kind of listening to Blink-182 and Green Day a little bit, but it's more like church involved now. And so during this time, my mom meets up with a friend. So my mother grew up in Ardmore, which is where we were living. She moves away, she moves back, and she is put in touch with her friend who has moved on and is coming back to visit. And as my mom and her friend are talking, the topic of religion comes up. And my mother is introduced to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
And so my mother connects with a lot of the doctrine that she's taught or that her friend is talking about. And so she's invited to meet with her friend and my friend's mom for dinner one night. And after dinner, the missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would come over and talk more about what they believe in. And so my mother gets this invitation from her friend, and then she knocks on my door and asks me if I want to join. And in my head, I think I have nothing going on that night. I have nothing going on any night. Sure. So I go mostly because it's something to do. So we have this dinner, and these like two missionaries from the church come in, and they are the weirdest looking people I've ever seen in my life. They have like these white shirts on and ties on, and it's like the summer, so it's like super hot out. So I'm like, why are you guys dressed like that? And they're like old looking ties too, and like I think they were like kind of sweaty, and I'm like, this is weird. And I was like really turned off by the first appearance of them. And I was like, what? I was like, when is this over? Can I go? So we met with them for probably 3 or 4 months before I ended up joining the church. So I don't remember a lot about any one specific meeting, but I do know that during the course of us meeting, I came to really love what they taught. And not only love it, but I was looking forward to our weekly meetings with them. And I remember there was one night we were driving back home, and my mom was like, oh, I'm probably going to cancel this week's meeting. And I remember like begging her. I was like, Mom, like, no, please don't. Like, I want to meet with them. So like, I just really like connected with whatever was being taught, and not just what they were taught, but also despite how they looked, they showed me so much like love. Like they became like my brothers to me. Like they were just
Wow.
a great influence. They were just so kind. I just wanted to sort of be like them, to be honest.
That's really cool, man. So you're still in Alabama at this point, and then so what ends up happening is that, and then you said you guys end up joining the church, so that ends up working. I'm guessing that's the conduit that then you guys ultimately join the church family, the church congregation. That becomes really a place of home, like a comfortable home for you. Is that right?
Yeah. I remember my mother and we joined at the same time.
Okay.
My father was resistant to us joining at the time. I later learned because in his mind, that was a really big commitment, and he wasn't sure how committed we were. But of course, he saw our commitment level and eventually let us join. And then he himself started learning more about it, and he joined with us as well. He was Catholic, so he was also like, didn't necessarily see the reason to join another church.
Sure.
It became a second home for me, and it was hard going because my parents joined, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints talks a lot about family. It's a very family-centered church. It's a very family-centered religion. And one of the principles that they teach is that families can be together forever. Hearing that for me, it was both bittersweet because I didn't really want to be with my family forever. It's a house of neglect. And in my mind, I was like, well, they don't really show me love. So why would I want to be with someone who doesn't show me love forever? And so that was really hard to go to church on Sundays, especially when my parents stopped going to church. When they stopped going to church, I still couldn't drive yet. So I was taking rides with my mom's friend's mom. She was probably, I don't know how old she was. In my head, she was like 80. She wasn't 80, but she was a grandmotherly. There's a huge age gap between us. And so I'm having to call this woman every Sunday. Can you come pick me up? And she's super intimidating to me because she's so much older and I'm younger, and I don't have experience as a kid talking with someone that much older than me. And so I'm going to church by myself, and they're talking about families can be together forever. And I don't really want to be with my family forever. But at the same time, I'm making friends there, and I'm having these adult influences on me that I've never had in my life. I have people who are my parents' age, and they're showing a lot of care and interest for me in my grades and like the friends I'm having, the experiences I'm having, like where do I want to be when I grow up. They're asking me these questions that I never thought of. And, you know, the church puts on activities every so often. And sometimes those activities would be held at their houses. So I'd go to their houses and I'd see just like their lives put in so much order. I mean, my house was never clean growing up. It seemed like everyone's houses that I went to was like super clean. They never fought, or at least it didn't seem like they ever fought. My family, it felt like we fought all the time. There's just this huge like eye-opening experience of like, oh, I don't have to live the way that I've been living. There's a different life out there available to me. I don't have to be someone special. I don't have to be born into it. Like I can make that for myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
So all the way around, I mean, on so many different fronts, this is really impactful to you to just have it, and not only a mentor for, or not a mentor, but an example of, you know, something that you could or wanted to work toward with,
Mhm.
you mentioned about the missionaries, but then you also just seeing family life and just, you know, hey, there's something else here that is available to me. So you end up spending there, and this becomes a big part of your life. It sounds like through your kind of your formative years. You're in fifth grade when you moved there, and then did you go back to Nashville when you finished high school?
Not immediately.
Okay.
I did end up serving a mission
Okay.
through my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That brought me to Argentina for 2 years. So those church missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's a 2-year mission generally. And so that was something that I always wanted to do ever since meeting those missionaries. And so I did do that, and it brought me to Argentina.
That's a big goal, man. From like, from this idea of seeing these guys and be like, yeah, that's something I could see myself doing. I'd like to do that or be that. And then deciding you want to do, did you like, and I'm thinking about this now, from our interactions, how we'll get to it later about some other goals that you've had in your life. Have you always been goal oriented, do you think, but just by your nature, or was this a new thing for you to be like, okay, there's something I want to do, and then I'm going to work toward it and achieve it?
That's a good question. I remember in elementary school having small goals, but those goals, I never like reached any of them.
Mhm.
And so I think I've always been goal oriented. I think ever since joining the church that I'm in, I've been more perseverant about my goals.
I think that's a good differentiation too, because I mean, I guess there's a difference, right, between having a goal and an idea, and then having the toolbox and the skills to be able to persevere through setbacks and just be able to execute enough times to where you can get there. Because there's almost nothing that you're gonna get right on the first try. So that makes sense. All right, so you leave Alabama and you go on your mission to Argentina 2 years, and then when you come back home, you come back to Alabama.
I do. At the time, so before my mission, I applied to college and I got accepted to BYU Idaho,
Okay.
which is where I am now. And so I defer, which means I asked to start school after my mission, and of course they let me because it's run by them, so why wouldn't they? So I come back from my mission to Alabama. I'm home for about a month, and then I go to BYU Idaho.
Okay.
I'm there for a semester. I don't love it. I learned this later, but I have astigmatism, and which just means that your eyes get blurry. The lights are kind of fuzzy. It's not that big of a deal, but when you're staring at a screen all day doing homework, you eventually get headaches.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I had that. So I would be staring at a screen all day, and I'd have these massive headaches to the point like I couldn't like sleep at night, like I couldn't focus. Like I somehow got good grades, but I mean it was hell. It was just so hard. And I didn't know why I got headaches. And that's part of the reason why I didn't want to go back to school, just because I I was like, I can't push myself.
I mean, that's miserable to think about doing that for years and years. So if you're in semester one and you're like, I got, 3.5 years of this and I feel terrible every single day. Like this sucks. Like that's a grind, man. So I could see why you wouldn't. And that not just sucks. Like it's going to be debilitating eventually. Like your headaches aren't going to get better. And so yeah, that's brutal. Okay. So you powered through and you did okay, but was there anything else about your first semester that just didn't sit with you, or was it strictly the headaches thing?
It was mostly the headaches thing. To be completely honest, I was dating someone long distance at the time. She wanted me to transfer to the school that she was attending,
Okay.
which was the University of Alabama in Huntsville, which is close to where I was, and a lot of where my classmates ended up going. So with the headaches and then her, I actually ended up transferring to the University of Alabama, Huntsville. But I never went because we ended up breaking up before
Savage.
school started. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out.
So you move back home, you're with your folks, and then the breakup happens. And then where did you go from there?
So I was pretty depressed naturally after being broken up with.
Yeah.
And I hadn't made any friends in BYU, Idaho. So I had no reason to go back to BYU, Idaho. At the time I was, I don't know, probably 20, 21. And so this was a time of great reflection. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I knew for a fact that I didn't want to go into debt if I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I was really reluctant to go back to school. So during this time, I knew I didn't want to go back to school unless I knew what I was doing. But I also knew that I had to do something. I couldn't just stay at home with my parents. So I found a job. I found a job at a warehouse where my friend worked. And it was a really chill job. All I really did was, it's really weird, but I was just screwing like one thing in to one thing. Okay. So it was a really simple job. The warehouse manager allowed us to like listen to music or podcasts, which was great. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts and interviews of people doing different jobs. And I stumbled upon a YouTube video about screenwriting. It was talking about why the Joker in the Batman movie was so well written. And I had never connected with anything in my entire life. I immediately became hooked. Everything that they were saying just made complete sense to me. And I was like, I want more of this. And so for the next like 2 weeks, my entire time was spent just looking up videos or talks or interviews about people talking about screenplays and like the writing behind it and like the emotional, like the hero's journey and all that type of stuff. And after those 2 weeks, I was like, oh, I've never been this obsessed with anything in my entire life. Like maybe I should be a screenwriter. And so my mom and we looked for different film schools. I looked at UCLA and New York Film Academy. Both were very expensive. Both seemed out of reach. There were two closer. There was the Nashville Film Institute and I don't remember the name, but there's another film institute out of Atlanta, Georgia. The one out of Atlanta, Georgia was, I think, 2 years. The Nashville Film Institute was 9 months, and it was a lot cheaper. And part of their marketing was advertising that we will get you a job in the film industry. And so someone who doesn't want to go into debt, seeing that this school is offering employment opportunity afterwards, it just made sense.
Yeah.
And it's in Nashville. So like I've always wanted to go back to Nashville. So now I had a reason to go back.
So you're at the Film Institute and you're learning all things about film production, and you ultimately finish the program.
I do. I do finish the program. I found out the hard way that they don't necessarily give you a job at the end.
Okay.
Obviously, they just can't just give you
Sure.
a job. But near the end of the course, they teach you how to look for job opportunities. They teach you how to network. They teach you sort of the soft skills that you need to meet the right people and connections. And so that's what I did. I just applied what they taught me. So I started going to every event that was film associated, trying to introduce myself to everyone, telling them that I wanted to be a PA and that I wanted to work and that I was willing to work for free. And I can't believe I did this. I had $20 left to my name at the time. And the panic of, oh, I need work had set in.
Yeah.
And I take that $20, I print off a couple of resumes, I put the rest of that $20 in my gas tank, and I go around town and I have a list of every film production company in Nashville. And so I should clarify that Nashville at the time wasn't a big film production company. It is now becoming one. I mean, they shoot TV shows and movies there now. At the time, it was a much smaller industry, and I'd still say that Nashville is small, but it was a lot smaller. So I'm going to all of these companies and I'm handing out my resume, but they're all closed because it's Saturday. And so I didn't realize that, of course, businesses are closed on Saturdays. I should have came during the weekday.
That's brutal.
And yeah, and I'm just like hitting myself. I'm just like, damn it. I'm so upset. And then it starts raining.
Of course.
And so like at the time, I'm like, oh, they're closed, but you know what? Like I'm still gonna like fold it up and like roll it and put it in like the door handle and like maybe like try to slide it underneath the door. And so like I go through town, I hit like the last like one, it starts raining, and I realize I'm like, all of the resumes that I put in the door handle, they're probably gonna get like, they're not gonna be able to read it on Monday when they come back because it's gonna be all wet. So I'm just like, what do I do? I remember thinking like, well, my friend said that he was trying to start a production company. I don't think he has any work yet, but why not just, and he told me to come by one day. So like, why not? Like, I'll just try. Maybe he's there. Maybe he has work for me. Maybe he doesn't, but it's on the way home. I may as well. So I go to my friend's production company and he's not there, but there's this guy in a kiddie. By this point, it had stopped raining. There's this guy in this kiddie pool. I'll just say he's like a redneck, right? He's got like this really like scrappy beard. He's all tatted up. He's in jean shorts
Nice.
in this kiddie pool. He's a grown man.
It's a great picture.
And he's drinking a beer. And he's like, "Hey, bud." And I was like, "Hi." And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm looking for," I don't remember my friend's name, Brandon. "I'm looking for Brandon." He's like, "Oh, he's not here." I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh, well," and I explained to him like I'm looking for a job. And he's like, "You ever want to work in the art department?" And I was like, "Sure." I was taught to never say no to a job opportunity, so I said yes. And he's like, "You seem like you got your shit together. Come work for me." And I was like, "Okay." And so I did. He ended up being a great connection. His name was Luke. I worked with with Luke and a guy named Rob for probably like the next 6 months in the art department. And almost immediately, then I think the next weekend I had work for like a Disney Channel commercial.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was able to pretty much work ever since then in the industry.
I mean, what a lifeline, dude. You're down to your last pennies are in your gas tank already. And you're like, that's really cool. You must have doing something right to make an impression on your guy Luke at that moment, to be able to just show up. You were showing up enough to impress and be like, "Hey, seems like you got it together. Like, you can get a job here with me." And that's awesome, man. I just think it's cool. You never know where those life signs are going to come from, right? In that moment, you just freaking never know how they're going to show up. And it's really cool that guy, which I can just imagine so vividly, sitting in the kiddie pool. That's great. So, working for 6 months in the art department with that guy. And this is post you finish your certificate by this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. So you're there 6 months, you're doing this with the art department and making more connections and doing more things. What's the next step from the art department for you?
Yeah. So it was actually a back step.
Okay.
The guy who we were working for retired.
Oh.
So he stopped working. And so just the nature of my job, I wasn't around anyone else to network with.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much in a warehouse painting or going to Lowe's and buying things. So I was hardly ever actually on set or actually meeting people. So when he stopped working, I had to start over in a sense. So I had to repeat what I did. I was going to different music videos for free or like small productions. I was joining Facebook groups. And so the next job I found after that was humbling for me because I was making at the time. So with Rob, I was making like $350 a day, which for me right out of college is great cash. Yeah. Plenty for me. And you're working 12 hours a day. And so I had to go sort of start over. And my next job, I worked for 12 hours a day again, but for $100 a day.
Oh, wow.
So that was a gut punch, and that was
Yeah.
hard. But through that, I met some of my best friends, and every other connection came through that second job where I was making $100 a day in some way or another. And so I went from like 350 a day to 100, and eventually I just had to keep sort of working my way up. And so during my time in Nashville, I worked on a lot of different productions in a lot of different capacities. It wasn't necessarily linear.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, I worked as a assistant production coordinator, an assistant locations manager. I worked in the grip department as a grip.
A grip is a person who like moves the cameras, right?
No, that'd be like a second AC.
Okay.
A grip is someone who like the C stands or like the lighting stands.
Okay.
It's like heavy. It's just like heavy steel. I'm
Okay.
moving heavy steel. Think of it like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked in the grip department. Sorry, now I just want to make sure I knew what that was before we move forward. So you moved in the grip department, and then you had a couple other jobs I think you were going to mention.
Oh yeah. And then I was also like a second AD.
Okay.
I was a production assistant a lot of times. That was the most of what I was doing in Nashville.
I mean, so you had a bunch of jobs. I mean, ranging a good gamut of experience. Mostly seems like on the production side. So you were making progress, but at some point you were like, it's ultimately not enough, and you decided to make a big move. Is that? Yeah. What was the catalyst there that took you from you're making progress to, gosh, we gotta do something different. We're gonna make a big change.
I was making progress, but it wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I joined the Nashville Film Institute to be a screenwriter.
Okay.
When I wasn't working, I was writing, I was reading, I was training to become a screenwriter, and that opportunity wasn't available in Nashville. And so I knew that if I stayed in Nashville, I would keep working in production, but I wouldn't be working in the capacity that I wanted to be in. And so it took some coercing through some friends and a therapist to help me realize that if I wanted to be a screenwriter, I'd have to move to LA and meet with screenwriters and put in the work to become a screenwriter. So I moved to LA at the worst time one could to become a screenwriter.
Why is that?
So it was the year 2023, so 2 years ago, at the start of the second largest writer strike in the screenwriting
I remember that
history.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. So the film industry pretty much shut down. I was working on an Amazon feature at the time in the production office. We saw it coming months ahead. They were talking about striking back in like December of 2022. So it wasn't a surprise to anyone when they finally struck, at least not to us in the department that I was in. But at the same time, I was actively looking to move to LA. And in my head, so before 2023, I want to say like every 2 years, a different union will have their contracts renewed. And so I think like 2 years before, I think it was the DGA, Directors Guild of America, they just went through their own contract negotiation. And they were also rumored of striking as well. And I don't think they ever struck. And so like my entire career in the film industry, there was rumors of strikes, but they never actually happened. So in my head, I'm like, if they strike, it's not going to be very long.
Sure.
And so around like June, I signed a contract to move to LA, and I move out there thinking that it's not going to last very long. So I moved to LA. On my move out there, my car gets totaled through a hailstorm. I arrive in LA. At the time, I didn't know it because it's just, in my mind, it's just aesthetically damaged, right? Like you can just buff it out. Like I didn't think anything.
Buff out?
I didn't. Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't look good. It looks like a golf ball with the amount of dents in it, but it's fine.
That's a serious hailstorm, man.
It was golf ball size. I mean, I have pictures. I'll
Yeah.
send you pictures. I mean, it was
That's wild.
like an inch or two.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So totally your car, and you're just like, look, whatever, this sucks, but I got to have a car. So I'm going to keep, like, I'm not going to let this stop me. Like, whatever. I'm going to drive my car with
Yeah.
dents in it. It's going to be fine. But
Yeah.
it turns out that there's more than that, but you're in. So did you make it all the way to LA, your car? It was like,
Yeah.
okay.
So I made it to LA. Fine. I filed the insurance claim like the next day.
Okay.
That happened. And they told me that like, oh, well, you have so many months to take it to an auto body shop and get like an estimate and, do the whole insurance process.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have time. I didn't move to LA just willy-nilly. I made a connection there. I had like a few people in place who would help me find work when I got there. I had savings built up. And to my surprise, my roommate also worked in film. Or he used to work in film, but he has friends who currently work in film.
Okay.
And so I'm driving into California. Like I just crossed the state. I think I'm crossing the state line as I'm on the phone with my friend in Nashville. My friend in Nashville, she became, so I mentioned the job that I was working for $100 a day for 12 hours. My friend, Katie, she becomes the manager of that company. And so she's the person who hires everyone to work. I'm driving into California. She calls me and she says, hey, we're actually going to be in California this weekend. Would you like to work? Yes, I will. And so I'm making more than $100 a day at this point, thankfully. And so I moved to LA. It's like 3 days in, I start working for my friend Katie. During this time, my roommate says, hey, my friend is working on a movie. The PA just quit. Would you like to be a PA on this movie? I said, yes. So I worked for a movie as a PA for like a month. And then they like that movie ends and then they immediately start another movie. So I go on to a second movie. So I'm working like nonstop. I mean, I'm barely unpacked in LA. And so like 3 months go by, 2 or 3 months go by, and I finally have a free weekend to take my car into the auto body shop. To clarify, the writer strike is still going on. That's for union work. They were non-union, which means they were outside of, like, they could work, but the rates, the amount of pay wasn't as high as you would normally get in like a union job. So that's how I was able to work.
Okay. That's a really good clarification. I was wondering about that too. So I'm really glad it made sense because you're talking about the writer's strike going on. I was trying to make the connection whether it was you were doing non-writing work or whatever it was. So anyway, yeah, thanks for breaking that down.
Yeah.
So you're working like crazy and you take your car in the body shop and then I think I know I'm guessing this is where it's going, but yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I take it in and they're like, okay, well, we'll get back to you. And I said, okay. And I come back and they tell me that it's totaled and I can't drive it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And apparently the contract that I had signed when I bought this car, there was a clause in it that said if it's declared a total loss at any point, I no longer can drive it legally. Yeah.
So that's the contract. When you said you signed a contract earlier, I was actually wondering about that. You said you signed a contract and moved out. So this was the contract for your car. You took a loan out on the car effectively, and then
yeah. So there's a lot to it. So right before I moved to LA, the car that I owned, the engine died. So I had to buy a new car.
Sure.
I didn't have to buy a new car. I was very ignorant of buying cars. I had no idea. This was like 3 days before I was moving. Like I had already signed the contract, my apartment contract.
Got it.
For a year.
Got it.
I had already given up my contract for Nashville.
Okay.
So I was in a position where like I couldn't really stay.
Yeah.
I'm sure I knew the person who owned the house. He would have let me stay, but I just wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Like I had, yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm making enough money now that I can afford this car loan.
Mm-hmm.
And I could, if I continue making the same amount of money that I'm making, I'm going to be okay. I have savings. Like it's not the end of the world. I don't want to buy a new car right now, but I will be okay.
Yeah.
So I sold my car to the dealership, which was a mistake, but we don't have to get into that. And so I take out this loan to buy a new car. Fast forward, this new car is totaled. And thank God I have gap insurance, which means I'm not liable for that anymore. So
Yeah. So otherwise you would have been without a car and owing a bunch of money still, potentially, right? Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
Oh, that's terrible. So what did you end up doing at that point for transportation? Did you have to buy something else, or did it work? Like, I mean,
So I was close enough to. I was in the city of LA. Well, I was technically in the Valley, if you're familiar with.
no, but other people will be. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
close enough that
Yeah.
it wasn't a huge. You're able to work around it. Is that you public transport?
Yeah, so there's public transportation, there's buses and subways that I was able to navigate my
Nice.
life in LA enough. When my car got totaled, they took that away from me. And I'm thinking that it's just going to be, you know, a few weeks and then I'll be able to get another car.
Yeah.
It takes a year, everything with the insurance to go through.
Wow. Okay, so you're a whole year, and but in the meantime, you're able to short out, but you're just kind of grinding out, thinking that's got to finish soon. But the whole thing doesn't.
Yeah,
It's just a giant pain. But
yeah.
in the meantime, you're still trying to grind out your career as working in film while the writer's strike is still going on. And how long did the writer's strike last ultimately?
I don't remember the exact amount of days. I remember it being like 2 weeks shy of the longest writer's strike. I want to say like 6 months. Yeah, I think I want to say like 6 months.
That's a long freaking time when you're trying to establish yourself there. But that ultimately wasn't the end. Neither of those setbacks were the end for you in LA. You decided to stay there. How long did you end up staying working in LA?
I was in LA for 2 years and 3 months.
Okay, so I mean that's a good chunk. A good chunk of your time was there, but that's also you were there for a while. So what did you end up doing after your job in the second one? You said you were working as a PA, and then that on a movie, and then that movie finished, and then you rolled right onto another movie. Did you kind of keep working as a PA, or what were your next jobs?
I was continually offered positions to be a PA in LA with this non-union group, but I wasn't able to accept the jobs because I didn't have a car.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a production assistant, not a lot of, but
you got to do stuff. You got to run errands, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. So I had to keep turning it down, and they understood why. And so I'm waiting. In my head, I'm thinking, oh, like any day now, I'll be able to get another car. It may not be a new car. It'll be a car, and I can still work as a production assistant. Because I'm waiting, I'm not working. I'm just waiting. And during my day, there was a production company about a mile away from my house. And so during the day, I would go just pick it with them and try to talk with writers and anyone I could. And at night, I would work on my screenplay. That was kind of like the job that I gave myself. But I wasn't earning any income.
Yeah.
And so I did that as long as I could until my savings ran out. And then I was like, well, I need a car, or I need a job. And so I was in such a desperate position financially that I just took the first job that was offered to me. And it was a data entry job. I was there for just shy of 2 years. I started in October. Yeah.
And that's a long time to be at that's hard. That's a hard time because you're in LA, you're working on, and you're still working on your screenplay at night.
Yeah. I was working on my screenplay, and then I really started doubting. I was just like, what am I doing in LA? How did I get here? I feel trapped. I was just looking for, I started to question. I was like, do I really want to be a screenwriter? Do I really want to be in the film industry again? Like,
brutal. Wow. That's hard because to your point, like if you're working at a job because you have to pay your bills and this is your goal and you're here and you're doing it, but also like your motivation's gone at the end of the day. And so then you're starting yourself, maybe this is what I freaking want to do. I don't know. And so, yeah, did you already have this defined deadline or a timeline in your mind when you moved to LA of, hey, at 30, I'm going to go back to college if this isn't working out? Or did that develop later?
I had made that promise with myself when I first dropped out.
Really?
Around 20 years old. Yeah.
So you've been going through things through this time. You've always known, okay, like this has happened. So is there like, do you have like check-ins with yourself? Like you look at the clock, you're like, okay, I still got I got 3-4 years. And then all of a sudden, as you get close to that, you're in LA and you're working at this job. And at what point did this start to become more real where you were like, okay, maybe this is happening? And also, it's a really big question. I should have only asked one, but I have like 7 in my mind. Did you were you working any side jobs in film at the time? Or was it this data entry job was so all consuming that you were like, you were just surviving outside of work at that point, just like,
Yeah, no, I had thought about it. I had received an email because a lot of people, Nashville is very word of mouth.
mhm.
You get your name gets recommended, and so there's people who would recommend me. I got a text the other day from someone who recommended me, thinking that I was still in Nashville. Like I get updates like that all the time, and so I got an email from someone who it was like, "Hey, I got your information from so and so. I'm with Mark Rober. We're doing this YouTube video. Like, would you like to be a part of it?" And so I was close to flying out to Nashville and working with Mark Rober for a day because I
That'd be fun.
wanted to.
Yeah, why not?
That would
Yeah.
have been super fun. So I said yes. But then I just started thinking about like logistics, and financially, I might have actually like lost money doing it because
Yeah.
of like through travel. And so I had to turn it down. And so I had thought when I initially got the job that I would be able to maybe make it work, like work on the weekends in film, but it would just have been too hard.
Sure.
And then not only that, just emotionally, I think I was just drained. I was spent. I had no more, I had nothing left to give.
I get that. I get that. So then you decided that you were like, okay, this is time. We're going back to college. Whereas were you able to kind of pick up where you were the day did everything get accepted back in? And you faced a good amount of hurdles as you made your transition from Nashville to LA, like logistically and otherwise. You got the car totaled and just other stuff that was at the screenwriters strike and several other things. But was it a similar way when you decided to go back to college, or did things move pretty smoothly for you there?
Things moved really smoothly. Everything just fell into place. The application to get back in, I think, was like 2 questions.
Oh, wow.
Like it took me, it was 1 page and I clicked like 2 buttons and I got in. Like it was very easy to to come back here.
That's awesome. Want to, if we can, to pivot a little bit to your time now in school. But before we do, I'm curious about your screenplays that you were working on at the time. Do you want to talk about what they are about?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about them. I'll be honest, I'm only proud of one of them. I've written 7, and there's only one that I'm pretty proud of, that I'm comfortable like showing and having people read. That one, it's called Pickface. It's about addiction in disguise. So the concept is you have a group of hikers who are on a scavenger hunt, and they realize that it's not really what it seems to be, and they're sort of trapped in this world. And the only way to get out is through finding the thing that they were looking for in the scavenger hunt. And during that time, they encountered this monster called Pigface. And it's meant to be like a horror film, but it's really sort of about how like people get so dependent and reliant on drugs or any other sort of addiction, and how that just kind of keeps you trapped in that world.
That's interesting. I bet that sounds. I could see that being a really like a very multi-layered storyline there. That's cool. I like it. It's a catchy name too. Pigface. I like it.
Thanks.
Okay, so everything falls into place. You're done with LA. You move to Rexburg. And this isn't your first time moving from a city to a small town. Like you're there
Yeah.
before. Like was that kind of, obviously it's not the same as going from when you were 10 moving to a town of 1,000 people, but it's a change, man. And I mean a different culture and everything around it. So has there been a little bit of a learning curve as you kind of enter a different area, like culturally and everything else?
A little bit, not too terrible. BYU Idaho is run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
So the majority of the students are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So culturally, it's very similar to the Church of Jesus Christ's culture. So in that sense, it's not much of a culture shock. When I was in LA, I couldn't go very far. I mean, I had public transportation, but day to day, I was going to the same places. I wasn't going very far. And so even though I don't have a car here, and Rexburg's a very small town, I'm accustomed to being in the same place for a long period of time.
Got it.
So
Is that nice? I mean, I remember you clearly, look, you're not afraid of change. You made big changes several times in your life, and you're not opposed to it. But I remember you in one of your LinkedIn posts, I believe you talked a little bit about kind of this there's a little bit of a desire for some stability. I'd love if you could just kind of talk me through a little bit about that, because I thought that was an interesting comparison there.
Yeah, I think when I went on my mission to Argentina, when I moved to Nashville, and even when I moved to LA, I think I was just running away from something.
Mm.
And honestly, it was just through like the hurt and my past from like the neglect that I'd experienced. I was just trying to sort of avoid feeling that. I was trying to avoid any situation that resembled that. I've just seen in my life people who have made friendships, and those friendships have lasted several years. And I see how close they are, like the intimacy and the connection that they have with those people. Not just friendships, but even like relationships, right? Like I have friends who, even from high school, they've gone on, they've married someone, they now have kids. And I used to think when I was in high school that I didn't want that because it seemed boring, and I didn't really want boring. I wanted something exciting in my life. And I've had, I would say, a fairly exciting life. And it is fun, but it doesn't give me what I ultimately wanted. And I realized that what I ultimately want really only comes through, having that intimacy and connection with friends and having those friendships and relationships last for several years. And you sort of build that, you build your life around that. And I think I'm just tired of having to make new friends all the time. I don't mind making new friends all the time. It's just sad when they leave or when I leave. I'm kind of tired of that.
I get that. And I think it's really impressive that you're able to acknowledge that and see it already, and just be self-aware about that. After our conversation here, I can see that that's clearly that's a part of you. Like, you're clearly really self-aware. And I also know that doesn't just come by accident. And I think it's impressive. So you're going back to college experience has been a little different, right? So I thought about this, and I think you go to college, and the whole goal is to, it's like a big personal development effort, effectively, right? And you're like, grow, you're going to gain skills in whatever they are, and then someone's going to certify those skills, and then you're going to, hopefully you're going to do something different with your life. Either, what I mean by do something different is just like, you're not going to stay in college likely forever, but you're going to go and you're going to do a career, you're going to start whatever you're going to do. But you've taken a modified approach to that, in that you're not just back in college, you're also like, tell me how I'm mislabeling this, but it feels like you're building yourself, but you're also attempting to help build others. I've just seen as you're, sharing lessons learned and documenting your journey, that it feels like there's an active attempt to give back. So as you decided to make this journey back, to instead of just be, focused on doing the task, to also take the approach of documenting it and sharing it, and maybe building a community. I don't know. Tell me what your goal is there. That's the takeaway.
I think my ultimate goal, when I started posting on LinkedIn and learning at 30, which is what I sort of branded myself as, the actual goal was, all right, well, if I could just sort of talk to myself back when I was 20 and tell myself what I had been through and what I had learned through it, I would have made so many different decisions and choices.
Yeah.
And my life would have been completely different. And I would have avoided a lot of heartache and pain and scrapes and bruises along the way. And so with every post, I'm sort of writing to my younger self and saying like, hey dude, like, this is sort of what I've been through. And I did start off with the intention of hoping someone would take it and learn from it. But as I've started to write, I realized, I can't control whether someone takes advice or not. And who am I to actually be someone to give advice? But what I can do is I can just tell my story and try to tell it in the most entertaining and honest way that I can. And if someone learns something from that, then fantastic, then great. I've done my part. That's all I really can hope to happen.
I think it's your story, everything. It's your everything. But I would just say, like, I'm glad that you're doing it. Someone's out there. People are listening. I'm learning from it right now, and people who listen to this will learn from it. And you only have to be one step further, than somebody else, to be able to have a different perspective. And even if you're not even one step further, you can have a different perspective. Like, you can learn something from everyone. Doesn't matter where they are. That said, you're not done sharing, man. Like, you're on lesson. What did I see at the time of the filming? You're getting close to your 30th lesson, I think, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the I think today was the 27th.
Okay.
So to give context to anyone who doesn't know
Thanks for
what I'm
that.
doing
Yeah,
or
thank you.
why I'm doing that, yeah. I started this initiative. I'm going back to school at 30 years old, and I've been documenting my journey through LinkedIn, and I've recently started a newsletter. And I'm technically not 30 yet, but I realized I've been calling my brand Learning at 30. Maybe I should make a big deal out of it. So I have this countdown from when I turn 30 to like 30 days ahead. So every day until I turn 30, I'm sharing just a different lesson just through my life. And so on Monday will be lesson 30, and I'll be 30
Happy birthday.
on Monday. Thank you. Yeah, and happy Halloween. Today's Halloween.
Yeah. True. Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
I like
And
that. It's a good branding idea too, by the way. It's been effective. I mean, it caught my attention. It's been effective.
thank you.
So please, yeah,
Good. I'm
continue.
glad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think once I turn 30 and once this initiative is over, I'll go back to having more of a focus on school life. Just for me, just as a catharsis, I've been focused on sort of my life as a whole.
Mhm.
And maybe someone can kind of get a flavor of who I am as a person, and I don't know, have a little bit more of a reason to follow me in my journey.
If you had to do it again, from that kind of time frame, like as you've been thinking about writing yourself, like, is there anything you do differently? Looking back 21 to now?
I think the one thing I would have done differently, which would have completely changed my entire life, was I probably would have stayed in school and not gone to film school.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, talk me through that a little bit. That's a big freaking change.
Not to say that this 10-year odyssey hasn't been worth it. It totally has. But everything that I ultimately wanted, I could have gotten it had I just stayed in school and pursued like a normal thing that I thought I didn't want. I said normal thing. I remember being in school, and in my brain, what I thought everyone wanted from me was to go to school, to get married, and to have a job by like 25.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't want to do what anyone else wanted me to do. But I realized that, sure, I don't know if anyone else wanted that from me, but I realized that I wanted that. And I didn't realize that I wanted that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a journey of self-discovery, though. I mean, it took, but you're ultimately here, and that's I think that's cool. Is like you had a cool 10-year odyssey, which 10 years feels like a long time, but also, so much feels like it's catastrophic. It's a train wreck, but really, like, only train wrecks are train wrecks, and you can probably going to be okay, and you could probably still turn it around. So I think it's cool that you're doing it, man. Elijah, this has been really informative for me. I'm really glad I got to know you today. I appreciate you taking the time and being vulnerable with myself and anybody who listens to this. And I think I think a lot of people are going to relate to your story. I like it. It seems to me like there's a lot of comeback in your story. Like you've had some complexities to overcome, but also it's not like you're done. Like there's lots of cool stuff coming ahead. It feels like a comeback story, but then there's also this exciting, hopeful story. So I don't know. Thanks for telling us and being so authentic and open and honest. And yeah, I really liked it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your questions and being able to do this interview. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, man. It's been rad.